Hi, this is George,
And this is Khai,
and we're here to talk about Hand of Fate.
and there will be spoilers.
Yeah, so I'm not. I actually don't remember how I got into this game. I might have just watched the Total Biscuit review and said, sure, I'll buy it." But yeah, it's. I think it's a pretty good game. When I first started playing it, I was really impressed, and it held my interest for a little bit of time. So I wasn't really disappointed when it ended. I was just pretty content, and overall, it was a good experience. How about you?
I feel the same way. Like, definitely the concept of the game. It's where where you're building a deck and you're going through these uh, quote unquote dungeons or adventures based on the deck that you build, and uh, it being an RPG, like that really intrigued me. I wanted to see what it was like, and so far, uh, I am was it? I am at the second to the last boss in the game. I haven't beaten it just yet. I've had my frustrations with the game. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I'm also pretty content that so much that I made it that far into the game. I just haven't beaten it yet.
All right then. So, are you, are you ready to go into the scoring right away?
Yeah.
So, I'm somewhere between thumbs sideways and thumbs up. Um, I kind of want to give it a thumbs sideways, despite my amazing review just then. I think there's some pretty big flaws, and if they fix those flaws, I feel like this would be no problem thumbs up. But these flaws are kind of there, and they're kind of jarring, and I think most people will not enjoy that part of the game. This game is a pretty short game, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. So that's kind of why I have such a good impression of it. I reinstalled it recently to for this podcast, but it didn't exactly hold up over time. Like when I went back and played it again, I was like, wow, I remember why I uninstalled it. It's because I beat the game. That's why. How about you?
Um. So far, yeah, I'm gonna go with a thumbs up. Like, I can see. I do get the feeling where at once I beat the game, I will uninstall it because for me, I want to see how the we're gonna get to this, but the quote unquote story
Yeah.
in the game
Yeah.
that's the thing that pulls me back.
That was
I
the
want to see it.
that was the cool part.
Yeah, exactly. That was the cool part, right? So that's the thing is really sort of preventing me from beating the game, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Talk about that soon. Yeah.
So I guess in terms of genre, like gameplay wise, it's sort of just the Arkham City. You click and you can counterattack. Witcher One had a very similar system, and so do all the Batman Arkham games. And it's not better than any of those games I just mentioned. It's arguably worse at this combat. I actually played Hand of Fate originally, very recently to my Dark Souls playthrough, and yeah, Dark Souls has a much better combat system. Arkham City, while it doesn't have the best combat system, is still better. It's not a good combat system. In terms of the rest of the game, it's mostly just a story, right? Like
Yeah.
you
That's where it's at. Yeah. For
you
sure.
go around, you talk, you basically have a choose your own adventure.
Yeah. Oh, so I guess we're talking about what the game is right now.
All right, let's
Uh,
let's summarize it. I wouldn't put it in the top three of any genre that I can think of. So my score would just be a thumb sideways, and then no stars. How about you? Are we still doing the star system?
uh, Thumb sideways and no stars. No stars. Like, how do you? No, no.
So
No, we're not doing the star system.
oh my
We can
god!
keep it. We can keep it at thumbs up and thumbs down and sideways.
But the star system makes me feel better, Kai.
Okay, fine.
Do you not like the star system? It's too difficult.
No, I mean,
It does make
fine.
the scoring system way more complicated.
Definitely the thumbs up. The thumbs that feels more like a gut reaction or gut impression. It's just like immediately like where do you where do you lie? Whereas yeah, definitely the scoring. It's more there are things that add up to the score, right? So it's more specific, yes, but they have their different uses. So if you wanted to go ahead and do their stars, I can do that too.
No stars, Kai? Is that what you're saying? No,
Nah.
no. The star system is that you get a star if you get 3 stars if you're the number one game in like your genre, and then 2 stars if you're the number two game, 1 star if you're the third place in your genre.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
it's not like this gradient of a thumb sideways is 2.5 stars.
Right, right.
You know,
Okay,
it's just like, are you the number one in this genre?
right. Okay, I see. Um, yeah. In that case, I'd agree with. I'd agree with you. Thumbs up and no stars. That's right.
Don't you disagree with me? Because I actually gave this thumb sideways, not a
Yeah,
thumbs up.
sideways. I mean, I agree with you on the stars
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
Well, let's just get back on track.
Mhm.
We're gonna summarize this game. This game is I feel like it actually falls into the board game as video game genre.
Yeah. Definitely an aspect of board games, the deck building. That is truly the unique, I guess, gameplay element in the game that you can attribute to board games. So, oh yeah, you're right. It is definitely very very much based on or has very board game like
Yeah.
elements. Yeah.
If I were to name a board game, this is like, it's kind of like Arkham Horror, or even more like Eldritch Horror. Eldritch Horror is basically the better version of Arkham Horror. And in Arkham Horror, they have these these sort of like continuation cards. So you can get like a debt card that represents that you're in debt, and then at some point in the future, your debt is going to be called, and you're going to flip over the card, and you have to pay back your debt, usually with blood. Sometimes you have to lose your sanity. Usually, it's always like a terrible thing happens if you actually have to pay back your debts. And Hand of Fate sort of has this where it's like you can encounter a card that says, a guy lost his fishing boat, and then in the next session you will encounter a card that says, there's a kraken at sea, and it was related to the first card. So this whole continuation card idea was really, really neat. We've seen it before, like with Eldritch Horror, but with Hand of Fate, they like amped it up to 10. There's 10 different sequences that you encounter. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, yeah. I really enjoyed that too. Now, the thing is, so with regards to the deck building in the game, you are making your own deck,
Yeah,
and then the dealer
makes a deck of monsters essentially.
exactly makes a deck of encounters and monsters and whatnot, and then shuffles it with your deck, and then creates a quote unquote game board with it, right? And with the cards face down, and then to progress through each dungeon, if you want, you're gonna flip a card and move to that position, and then resolve that card.
Yeah.
So the way these cards they are laid out, they can be laid out in any fashion. Usually, there are like a couple of patterns that
it's a very simple maze usually. Like,
yeah. Usually, and at the end, there's a card that lets you go up to the next level, and so on until after, like, I think maybe the max is like 3 levels or 4. there's a boss encounter under one of those random encounters, and then you fight the boss and you win the
You win this dungeon session basically.
yeah, basically. So
Yeah.
that's how it works.
And then you get loot based on all the encounters you solved. And by loot, we actually just mean more encounters, and that is the fun part. It constantly exploring these new encounters and like having these little choose your own adventures. Because whenever you resolve a card, let's say you encounter a fairy, you can ask for like 3 different things, like health, money, or I guess
Supplies.
yeah, supplies, which is food basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so, these little choose your own adventure stories were really cool. And the fact that they changed over time, really kept my interest.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Actually, we can go into the likes and dislikes right now. So, just to recap, there really is no story. I mean, the story is you make your own.
Yeah, the story is you have little tiny random story encounters. There is kind of a story. There's like these little quest lines, where
yeah.
yeah, I think one of the quest lines is two Romeo and Juliet. They're from opposite status, and then you can hook them up together so that they can elope outside of the city. So that would be just like one card encounter, and then in the next session you could figure out what happened to them.
Right, exactly. So yeah, let's dig into the likes and dislikes. So, the likes. So for me, the combat, yes, I know it is simplistic. It's not as advanced as the Arkham games, where you're pretty much just hopping around and smashing everything. It's not as fluid as that, but it does the job. I mean, like, I wasn't bored. I can tell you that. It can be difficult at sometimes, and particularly later in the game when you have like 2 really difficult encounters like combined together. Yeah, those things are tricky. But in terms of what you can do during combat, it's just I think you mentioned it was just like you're striking people and then you're countering people. You can jump around, and then you have an activated ability from an artifact that you can pick up, and you have a weapon ability depending on what weapon you're equipped with.
Yeah,
right.
It's very simple.
Yeah, it is very simple, but definitely the card building aspect along with the RPG aspects, where you can select particular cards, like sets of equipments, like armor, helms, armor, gauntlets, what is it? Rings.
Yeah.
And then
these
weapons, of course.
These will show up like in your play session as rewards, just randomly, right? So it's not like he'll give you a helmet and then this helmet could be any helmet in the game. You choose beforehand like what helmets you want to be rewarded with. So there's some strategizing there. I didn't really get into this whole deck building aspect.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. I thought it was more or less a little bit annoying. I just wanted to play the game and just have the game automatically choose like the best equipment, automatically choose the some new encounters, some old encounters, and prioritize new encounters because I want to see like new cards. I don't want to see like the same old fairy or the same old person. That was the fun part for me, is exploring the like new card stories.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, bouncing off from combat, where, definitely you pick your equipment. That's what I liked about it. And each boss, each main boss, or each main boss dungeon, they have a set of curses that sort of influence that pretty much influence the entire your entire dungeon session, right? And sometimes you want to build your deck around that to negate certain effects.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so definitely for me, I like the deck building because I want to pick the optimal cards for my run. Now,
Mhm.
initially, I used to do the recommended because like I didn't know what the hell was going on. But
Obviously.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And then, as I got more cards, and as I sort of understood how, what was it? As I understood how you have these encounter cards that evolve over time, these persistent encounter cards that have a continuation, as you mentioned, in future play sessions. I was intrigued with trying to resolve the storylines as best as I can. Sometimes, like, well, even now, the thing that's preventing me from beating the game is if I'm always trying to run into the other cards that I have not, or the other stories that I have not yet encountered yet, or if I have not beaten yet, because I want to see the resolution to those stories. So sometimes I would just throw the game,
Pretty
just
much.
so, yeah, just so I can find out what the hell happens after I kill the Kraken, or what happens after I.
I don't think I even killed the Kraken, by the way.
It is so hard to kill the Kraken.
Okay.
I died like 3 times to it, and I'm still trying.
Yeah,
But anyway,
I played on the hard mode, so I kind of.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was tough, man. Like the first half of the game, I feel like is pretty fun on hard mode, but the second half, maybe not so much.
Yeah, yeah, we can get to that in the dislikes, but yeah, the deck building, just the shaping up your character and shaping up how you want your what kind of stories that you want to run into. I think that's I think that's cool, and I like, really, for me, the deck building is about the story, and I just want every time I get new cards, I always want to try them out because if you try to go to your deck and select new cards, it says this card is unknown or it hasn't been used before, so you don't know the effects. So that's the thing that keeps me playing this game in a way, because I want to see what each card does. Like it's really bad when I'm trying to beat the game, but like I am, so far I am enjoying just the exploration aspect of the game through the cards. Yeah.
All right. And funny enough, I feel like this game's genre is actually very similar to Armello. Because Armello is also a board game as game.
Yeah. Okay.
And Armello has a very similar combat system where you roll dice. Well, Armello has a combat system where it's just rolling dice, and then would Hand of Fate be better for if it was just rolling dice instead? I'm not super sure. I'd probably say no.
Oh yeah, I would definitely say no as well. Let me sort of add in something that I dislike. Right?
Okay.
So as you get through the later stages of the game, like some of the older boss encounters that you have fought before, like they get thrown into the mix. Oh, okay. So there's I think there's 4 tiers of dungeons. One's like regular mode, and then the second, after you beat that, like all enemy types, they're upgraded, so they're more difficult to defeat.
Yeah.
But then to sort of offset that, you might get like a bonus card or bonus gear, right? To start off your
bonus
game,
gold.
right? Yeah. So it gets harder and harder, and then at the last tier, like the encounters that the dealer throws in the game, sometimes they are really unfair. Like sometimes you just get unlucky, and it can get pretty frustrating, right? Because a lot of the card resolution, yeah, a lot of the card resolution is basically, um, you're either gonna draw a success, a huge success, a failure, or a huge failure, right? And the odds they can kind of they vary per encounter, but sometimes you get unlucky and you get really screwed. Like one time, I had 6 huge failures in a row,
Yeah.
and oh my god, that
It
really
was
cost me the game. Yeah.
it was so easy to get the achievement for like 20 failures in a row. That was the easiest achievement in the world. I still haven't gotten the achievement for like 7 successes in a row though. I fail a
Yes.
lot.
Yeah, no, definitely failure is that is going to be part of the game. Oh, but failures they might lead you to what is it? I think some encounters you can progress through failures, or rather like a success won't actually work, or
Really?
depending on no, actually, I might
I
be remembering this
there's
wrong, but
there is one encounter where there's a kidnapped princess, and then if you pay the ransom, something happens. If you just charge at them and you succeed, they'll run away. But if you charge at them and they don't run away or you fail, then you then you just fight them. So it's not like failure is a huge, detriment to you. It just turns into a combat encounter.
oh yeah. Most of the time, yes, but definitely a failure during the later stages of the game, like it can be pretty difficult.
Yeah, man.
It can be pretty difficult, that's for sure. So the RNG in this game, I would going sort of comparing it with Armello, I would prefer the RNG to this game a bit more because I think there is a bit more control
Yeah. So
in a way.
the RNG in Armello is just dice rolling basically, and you can draw, I guess, random cards. But in Hand of Fate, there are like they do this cup game basically where they lay out 4 cards in front of you, and then one's a success and maybe the other 3 are failures, and then they
Yeah.
like shuffle it around. I'm pretty sure actually that the visual of shuffling it around, you can actually track the card of where it goes, kind of.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I was really bad at this, obviously, because I oftentimes I was just like, I don't know, I'll just pick like the same one it was at originally or something. Like
Yeah.
there was no rhyme or reason. If they go really slow, then it's obvious. Like, oh, that one, yeah, I just saw it travel like that. But otherwise, yeah, it was really hard.
Yeah, so uh the the RNG, I mean, it's like to me
You think it's a little too
I
punishing?
feel it can be punishing towards the end of the game, but there are cards that that like reveal like encounters and shops like on the map. So you sort of know what you're getting into. And then I think there's like a blessing. What was it?
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called, but
There are
like it
tons of
lets you,
blessings.
yeah, it lets you redraw stuff, right? But yeah, it's the RNG. It's not as bad, I think.
Yeah.
At least, at least the cool thing is you can really deck out your deck out. You can really deck out your character. Like towards the end of the game, like or later in the later stages of a dungeon, and just like be like really powerful. But
Yeah.
but even then, like you can always get screwed by
But yeah,
uh,
you
but-
just randomly fall down a hole.
yeah, like some encounters, yeah, they you fail. Like I think a lot of the encounters they're like 50-50 pretty much. So then you might fail, or hell, like maybe it's just the way I built my deck, but like I find myself not getting a lot of gold, and then without gold, like it's hard. There are shops where you can buy equipment and heal yourself. So without gold, you can't really buy anything. You can't really you sort of have to rely on skill from then to get through a dungeon. But I did find that there were times where I had very little gold, or there were like curses. There was a curse that pretty much deducts 1 gold for every 15 health you have at the end of an encounter.
Oh
And
God.
yeah. So like those things, they're just the worst. And if you happen to get it, then it's like, okay, well,
You might as well quit.
yeah, you might as well quit, or you might as well just sort of, just not beat. Know that you're not going to beat the dungeon, but you're just going to resolve the storylines for whatever storylines you haven't encountered yet, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, yeah. So it's not too bad, but sometimes, yeah, I will agree. Yeah, it can be very, very punishing at times for no reason, right? Totally random.
Speaking of very punishing, the Hand of Fate though is still miles better than Armello in my opinion, because it really feels like you have a lot more choice, and sometimes you don't have choices, but at the same time, Hand of Fate has a much more interesting story. Armello had that like tutorial where there's a little bit of a story, and I kind of wanted Armello to just be that part of the game. And I feel like Hand of Fate is just that part of the game. There's like little quests, there's people talking to you, you have a little choice of dialogue options. So, that's all I wanted, and it doesn't really overstay its welcome. So, it was overall a good game, even though I gave it a thumb sideways, mostly because after the exploration stuff, after you see everything is done, there isn't really that much else to the game. And you can feel free to either beat the game or just uninstall it.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's as I mentioned before. Yeah, that's pretty much just the story in the cards rather. Just trying to figure out how to successfully trigger the next card in that card story. Or just figure out how to resolve. That's the thing that's keeping me coming back. And once I figure that out, or once I finish all the encounters, or most of them, then there's no reason. Yeah, there's no real reason to go back anymore, since you already know what the cards.
Unless, of course, Hand of Fate 2 comes out. It's coming out November 7th, so. That's actually really recent to when we're recording this podcast. Are you going to check it out, Khai?
But I will say, my gut reaction to your question is hell no. Okay, so
you said no?
Yeah, so I'll say no. I'll tell you why. So, as much as I do enjoy the simplistic nature of the game, like, I feel like sometimes it can feel mindless just going through the text, right? Like, yeah, sometimes like when I finish or if I played an encounter before, or a story card before, then I was just like, okay, skip. Yeah, just skip. Just let me get to the encounter, whatever. And let me find a new.
If they never repeated encounters, or they like repeated it less, that would be super sweet.
Yeah, definitely. So, for me, like, I'm not too big on like story being told by text, but the way this game did it, like with the narration.
There's a narrator. I thought that was super neat, by the way, because the text and the narrator are saying different things.
Yes.
Like in Mass Effect, it's more or less the same, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna read it. You can be quiet, Commander Shepard. I can read faster than you can talk. So I actually ended up skipping a lot of Mass Effect dialogue because it was just so much faster to read it. But with Hand of Fate, they're different. So
so and also, like, for me, I would prefer a main storyline rather than these mini stories told through cards. But like, if I happen to get it, I mean, if the game happened to land in my lap, I would play it, but would I buy it?
What are you implying, Kai? Are you implying are you implying Christmas is coming, Kai?
No, 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 not at all. I mean, like, perhaps we can rate our game as buy it full price, buy it on sale, buy it bargain bin, something like that, right?
Okay, yeah,
So,
that is a different rating system from what I've been doing. There's the buy it if or like play it if it's free, bargain bin, on sale, or full price like day one.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so
that's essentially a 4-star system or a 4-point system.
oh,
Actually,
okay.
there's 0 points, so there's technically 5 points you can give, 5 different points.
Okay, yeah. So, uh, to re-rate Hand of Fate with that score.
You
Uh,
rated it thumbs up, the highest score in like my scoring
oh
system.
no, no, no. I mean like Hand of Fate. This is a game where it's not really my thing, but I would buy it if it was like cheap, or like, I mean, when I say cheap, I mean like really cheap,
Like
like
bargain bin cheap,
bargain bin cheap,
like
right?
25 cents or $1.50 cheap.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah, it has to cost like as much as your groceries cost, basically.
Yeah, so this isn't a game that I am immediately like attracted to like right away. It did take some time for me to sort of learn it, but am I excited about mini stories? I don't know yet. Uh it's really hard to say, but I'll just say my gut reaction is no. Like, I would prefer a fully fledged story than just exploring and finding out these miniature stories. So
Okay.
that's the thing that's preventing me from going out and buying full Hand of Fate like 2
Okay.
like right away. Yeah.
By the way, this is a huge side tangent. I wanted Armello to be like Hand of Fate, so I was, Armello 2.0 is basically Hand of Fate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've been writing some notes about what I think it's gonna be like. Who knows? Maybe I'll get it done in like a year or something. All right, so that's all I have to say about Hand of Fate. It was made by Defiant Development, ironically, another Australian company. Just like Armello, which was also an Australian company. That's my final score is thumb sideways. Kai, any closing remarks?
Yeah, would you recommend this for someone who has played so you mentioned this game is very similar to Arkham Horror, or rather Eldritch Horror.
Yeah.
Well, they're more or less the same. Now, would you recommend this to someone who has played those games, and do you think this is better or worse or than those games? Even though, yes, they're different mediums, but how would you compare them? As long as we're talking about competitors like Armello, how would you compare them with playing the actual board game with Eldritch Horror?
I don't think I've played Eldritch Horror enough times.
Okay.
Eldritch Horror has some really big problems that a digital board game solves. There's a lot of like fiddly components. Even though they streamlined Arkham Horror, it was still a lot of like, you have to move around this token, you have to know these rules. Hand of Fate basically gets rid of all that, right off the bat. There's also music and like a narrator in Hand of Fate. There's a lot of like little upgrades you can make because it's a video game, and because of that, I would say Hand of Fate is better. If you did like Eldritch Horror, you'll probably also like Hand of Fate though.
Now, if I liked the aspect of these persistent cards, these in a continuous storyline through different sessions, and revealing like more cards that continue the storyline, would I enjoy Eldritch Horror?
I think a better game to compare it to would actually be the Arkham Horror card game, because Arkham Horror card game is more of a, you have a character, he levels up, he progresses through a very story, like a story centric, game. Like you actually go through a dungeon, and that dungeon, like almost everything, it actually, Arkham Horror the card game is basically Hand of Fate in real life. Eldritch Horror is more of a board game you play with your friends, and there's like, there's random encounters just like Hand of Fate, but there's also an actual story. That said, Arkham Horror the card game actually came after Eldritch Horror, so it definitely was refining that Eldritch Horror formula. Well, that's the end of the podcast. If you want to contact us, you can always reach me at Twitter. My handle is @MeisterJaggers. You can also reach us at GandCgamecorner@gmail.com. As always, links provided in the show notes.